Welcome to the channel. Today I have a good one. We have a Photoshop full edit tutorial where we cover the entire process in this series from frequency separation, dodge and burn, and color grading. Now this tutorial is more of an intermediate tutorial, so if you're a beginner in Photoshop, don't worry, si se puede con infante. I have beginner level tutorials that cover dodge and burn in full detail, frequency separation, color grading, and the famous question, how do you save for Instagram to get it sharp? So if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing because in this channel, si se puede. Now, let's go ahead and cover todo el pedo. Now, before I get into Photoshop, I do want to show you what I did at the raw level. Now, I use Capture One as my raw editor. So if I push Y on the keyboard, you'll see this is the before and then the after, before and after. And then I'll show you the individual layers. Now, I'm sure as you're looking at this, you're like, I'm curious how you edit at the raw level. I already have tutorials specifically with Capture One, and you can do the same thing with Lightroom as well. So here I have my white balance color adjustments just to kind of get rid of that orange tinge, some exposure adjustments to kind of lift up the shadows, a little bit of a radial adjustment so I can really target the main subject, so kind of darken the outside part. Then I did a little bit of dodge to the hair and to the face to make sure that that pops out. Then I adjusted the blues. I like those deep, moody blues because I'm very dramatic. And then I have the color orange that I made subtle adjustments back here. And then, of course, the blacks. If you pay attention over here, ladies and gentlemen, you will see that I brought up the blacks. I am going to be having a new Capture One video coming out soon. So if you're curious about Capture One, definitely stay tuned for that. All right, now that we're in Photoshop, the first thing that I want to do is I want to set up my cleanup layer, basically just making a duplicate of the background. And you can do that by simply going to the background layer and dragging it to the plus icon. Now, keep in mind, I did provide a raw file in the description. So if you guys want to edit along with me, rock and roll, get that raw file and jump in on the fun. Now, the first thing I want to do is we got to get rid of that little softbox. So a lot of times I'll get my softbox nice and close so I can get that beautiful soft light. So I'm going to select that and I'm going to click and drag to an area that kind of matches up pretty good. And right there, that looks good. And I'm also going to remove these little poles over here. So I'm just using my patch tool and I'm simply going to select around and let's drag this across. There you go. Thank you, Photoshop, for behaving. And we have this little section here. If this section doesn't look good, no biggie. What I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to fix that with frequency separation in a little bit so I'm not too stressed out about that. And if I'm not mistaken, there are some rocks down here, like this one, that is going to be removed with the patch tool. So that's all I'm doing here on step number one. Then we're going to jump into frequency separation. All right, now that I'm done with my removal of the softbox and the pole, once again, I know this looks crusty right now, so I know you're laughing at me like, what a loser. We're going to fix that right now. So let's jump into frequency separation next. I'm going to go into my frequency separation action. And those of you wondering, why are you using actions, Eli? It's like, well, damn it, I'm not going to do every single layer and step, right? There's a reason why I made these actions, so I could have saved some time here. I know some people want me to do every little like layer step. I'm like, hell no. I got to save some time here, bro. I got a full-time job. All right, so we're going to go 18 pixels here. And all I'm trying to do here is I'm looking at the flyaways, making sure that the flyaways are separated. And I don't see them because I'm going to be removing the flyaways with frequency separation. And if you're interested in frequency separation, once again, I do have a beginner level tutorial. So those of you that want to get real technical and you want to know every little thing about frequency separation, check out that video. The link will be in the description. Okay, so first let's tackle this guy over here because it's already bothering me over here. Okay, and the reason why I was going to do this later is that with my color backup layer, as I take a look at this, this is only going to be my color. So what I can do is I can just manipulate the color by selecting the mixer brush. I'm going to start off with this, and you can see my settings up here, my wet, load, and so forth. And all I'm going to do is simply just going to push that color that way, push that color this way. And voila, with already just a couple of pushes of the brush, I was able to fix that. Now there are some areas that are a little messed up here That's probably because it's on the texture layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my texture layer now with my clone stamp and select some of the texture and then fill that in. But of course, who doesn't always make that mistake? We got to set it to current layer. So I'm going to go to current layer. I'm going to select this, and there we go. Now we're making the magic happen, right? And those of you guys were laughing a while ago, or you're not laughing now, right? You're like, oh, this loser wasn't going to be able to fix it. Well, there you go. It's already fixed, okay? I apologize. I had some technical difficulties. My mouse, for some reasons, it's been glitching up, so I had to fix that. You know the way to fix it is giving it a good smack. That's what I did. That always solves the problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the flyaways now. So I got the clone stamp and current layer. There we go. And I'm simply just going to remove the flyaways with the clone stamp. Now you can do this with many different tools. Patch tool, healing brush, you name it. Use whatever tool rocks your boat. Okay. So whatever floats your boat, y'all. Okay. So I'm going to just basically do that. Just remove the little bit of the flyaways, and then we'll move in to the blemishes. All right, so flyaways have been taken care of. Now I'm going to zoom in and let's start removing the blemishes. I'm going to use the same process. I'm on the texture layer because that is where the blemishes are located. But in this case, now I'm going to switch to the patch tool. I'm going to circle around and I'm just going to drag it to a piece of texture that looks very similar. I wouldn't want to go to some area that is way off, right? So that's all I'm simply going to do is find texture that's very similar, and just repeat the same step over and over until I get all of the blemishes removed. All right, now that the blemishes have been removed, let's look at the before and after. Just removed a little bit of the flyaways and the blemishes so far. Now I'm going to go back to the color backup, adjust opacity layer. And we're going to go into the mixer brush. I'm going to smooth out some of this color and the transitions. So what I want to do is I want to turn on my helper layers because this is going to help me visualize and see where exactly I need to make those adjustments to smooth out those transitions. Okay. Now I'm a multiply guy, so I'm going to go to the blend mode, multiply, and I can see some of those transitions a little bit better now. Let me raise up this layers just a little bit more. There we go. Go to the color layer. And there you go. So what I want to do is I just want to massage just a couple of the areas just to kind of smooth them out, because this will speed up a little bit of the dodge and burn process. But you have to be gentle with this, really go slow and just kind of blend these off. So some of these darker areas, I'm just going to soften this up a little bit. I'm going to raise up some of this. So I'm not removing the shadows completely. Okay, I'm just trying to soften them up just a little bit. And one of the things that I can do in a moment is I can always click this little eyeball to see the before and after. And if I feel like I've gone too far, which, happens at times, I can always adjust the opacity of this layer. That's why I have this as a backup. So I'm actually really liking that so far. So that looks good. Let's zoom in, okay? For those of you on the phones, showing you guys some love. Those of you on the phones, I don't know how you guys do it to see all these details, but there you go. That's for you iPhone, smartphone users. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the body. I'm going to go to the arms, the legs, kind of smooth those out, and then we'll get into dodge and burn. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think I am done with the color backup layer using the mixer brush. So if I hit this little eyeball, let's move this bad boy up, my history panel. All right, now if I hit this little eyeball, I should see the before and after, and you can see that I've smoothed out some of the transitions here and here, and also on the face, just ever so slightly. You got to try to not be cute, but typically what I like to do here is just reduce my opacity just in case. So I'm going to put it at about 90%. And so with frequency separation as a whole, I'm going to go ahead and hit that drop down arrow. I'm going to hit the before, and this is the after of just the frequency separation. And so now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to rock and roll into dodge and burn. So I'm going to run my dodge and burn action now. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to start smoothing out some of the transitions a little bit more. We're going to do local dodge and burn first, and then we'll get into the global. So I'm going to change the blend mode to multiply. Talked about this earlier. Multiply, or I should say the helper layers, making it black and white, allows me to see the transitions a little bit easier. And so one of my favorite blend modes is multiply. And so what you can also do, by the way, is just lower the opacity. If you feel like it's a little bit too strong of an effect, you can go ahead and make that adjustment. So what I want to do here is I'm looking at these little areas here that I want to once again smooth out the transitions just ever so slightly. Some of these darker areas that I'm noticing here, here, and here. And I'll be showing you the before and after in a moment, but keep in mind that when you're doing dodge and burn, this is something that you have to just train your eyes. It's something that you can't just get good at within a week. It's going to take a lot of practice. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with dodge. I'm going to switch my brush to the brush tool. And I have my Todo el Pedo brush right here. And of course, I have my little tablet over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start blending off some of these transitions. So I'll start you all off together with me, and then you guys can go off on your own and then try it. So this is just a gradual effect once again. And the best thing to do is not zoom in too much, because O to the M to the G, that is a big mistake that you're gonna do at the beginning when you're first doing this. And then you're gonna over dodge and burn with your local. Okay, because you're gonna want to go all crazy and chiflaos and trying to dodge every little thing you can see, and that's just crazy. That's just nonsense. Okay, so let's kind of hit the before and after. Okay, so if you'll notice, if we kind of zoom in here, you can see some of the transitions that I've already adjusted there, just with those small adjustments. I'm not gonna go in there all hardcore and spend a whole hour, 3 hours, or 2 hours doing this. There's just no way. But if I hold Alt on this layer mask, what that allows me to do is it allows me to see where I've dodged so far. So that's all I've simply done so far. Basically, I'm going to just use that same kind of principle that I just told you, looking for areas that I want to just blend off and just smooth out. And then we'll get into the global in a second. And let's go ahead and take a look at what I've done so far. I've worked on the face with specifically dodge so far. So this is the before and then after. Holding Alt, that's where I've dodged. What I am going to adjust now is I'm going to adjust my curves here. So I'm going to reset this. I'm going to get a little point here. I'm going to find a bright spot. And then I'm going to find like a little mid-tone. And once again, that allows me to just see a little bit more of the transition. So I'm going to go ahead and work on that some more, and then I'll work with the rest of the body, I should say. There you go. Now, one of the things I did notice is obviously when I took this photograph, let me go ahead and zoom out here. The flash was coming in from camera left, and the arm and the leg are closest to the camera. So obviously, naturally, they're going to be brighter. So what I want to do is I want to tone this down. So I'm going to go into my burn. Burn basically means I'm going to darken up specific areas. And I definitely want to darken up just the arm ever so slightly. I don't want that to stand out. I really want the attention going towards Angela and not the arm. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then the same thing, I'm going to come over here into the leg. And I'm just going to darken that up ever so slightly. So if I take a look at this, this is before, and then there's the after. All right, so now let's take a look at just the local dodge and burn, what I've done so far. We got the before and then the after. Just some subtle adjustments, really just smoothing out this side of the cheekbone. And if I lose a little bit of the dimension, don't worry, I'm gonna bring it back with my global. So let's also take a look quickly at where I've dodged so far and where I've burned, okay? And so now what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to add an extra dodge and an extra burn, because now I'm gonna do the global. And so what I want to do here, one of the biggest changes I'm going to do is I'm going to make my flow to 4%. And this is going to add a little bit more dimension to the subject. So what I want to do is I want to look at areas that have the natural highlights. So I'm looking at the hair, definitely want to get the hair a little bit more glowing. And I'm looking for areas that already have that nice shine. So I'm basically just giving it just a little bit more light in those specific areas. I'm also going to zoom in to the lips. And I'm going to add just a little bit of light there, a little bit of brightness to the top of the lip. And zoom out just a little bit there so I can see the nose. We're going to add just a little bit of brightness there. A little bit to the cheekbone here. And because the light was coming in from camera left, it would make sense that this side of the forehead would be a little bit brighter. And then the little chin. I apologize if you can hear my dogs barking. They're chasing each other right now. Perfect timing. Like, they wait until I do a YouTube video to start chasing and barking at each other. So if you just hear that, I apologize. But yes, let's see. So this is what I have so far with the dodge, or the global dodge, I should say. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tone this down. I'm going to put it like around 85, 84% is cool. And then we're going to get into the burn now. And so what I want to do is I want to start darkening up the areas that have a little bit of that shadow. Now you might be thinking, well, Eli, didn't you get rid of the shadows here? Didn't you soften it up? Yes, I did. But now what I want to do is I want to bring back a little bit of that shadow, and I want to be in control of how dark and how smooth those transitions are by brushing it in myself, right? And so that's what essentially I'm doing here. Finding the areas that I want to be dark and just darkening up those areas in the hair as well, even in the shirt, okay? So finding these areas, a little bit on the arm, a little bit right here. And this step with the global, guys, is very important. This is what adds dimension and life to your image. So I'm going to add a little bit down here. And then more importantly, and I got this question in one of my workshops in San Antonio, is sometimes the light kind of spills onto the ground. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? This is where you can darken up some of that light fall off there with your dodge. And another thing that I want to do here, another reason to do this, not only for that light spill, but it also adds more attention to where Angela's at. If we have a bunch of bright areas down here, our eyes are going to want to go here. And so by darkening it up, our attention goes here. Now you'll notice that my flash and my strobe came in this direction, and it also hit the little wall here, gate, whatever you want to call it. I want to change my opacity or flow to 7. And now what I want to do is I simply want to just darken up this area to draw less attention to that specific spot. And so let's take a look at, I'm going to group the global dodge and burn. So this is before, and then after, this is what we have. So just looking at the local dodge and burn, this is the before and then the after. Now what you'll notice is that this area and this bottom area is drawing less attention. Now our eyes are really just focused on here. So let's look at again, before and then the after. So now let's go ahead and get into the color grading. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is we need to go into the catch lights. With this image, you're going to notice that the catch lights were, I'm going to make a new layer, by the way. So all I did is I went down here and I'm going to zoom in, and what you're going to see is one eye has a beautiful catch light and then this one doesn't, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to cheat here, right? We're going to get the clone stamp. We're going to change it from just current layer. We're going to change it to current and below. And what I'm going to do is I am going to make the brush smaller. And let's get a soft brush. There we go. And I'm going to hold Alt right here. And we're going to move that catch light over there. Ooh, yeah, look at that. Perfect. All right, so now we got 2 catch lights in the eyes. So now that kind of gives her a nice, beautiful glow. And then I have an eye curves layer. This is just going to, all this really does, guys, and you can look at my curves over here if you really want to, is basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the curves here, layer mask, and I'm simply just going to brush a little bit of brightness into the eyes here. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to add this and I'm going to brush. There we go. And there we go. Okay. So now we can go ahead and we can get into the color grading. Yeah, so there you go. Now that eye's popping there. All right, so now let's get into the color grading. I'm going to collapse the local dodge and burn, frequency separation. And what I want to do is I am going to go down here to my adjustment layers. I'm going to go to selective color. And usually when I start off my selective color, I'm really just looking at the skin tones, just trying to get it where I want. So I'm going to start off with the reds. I'm going to put -10 here. We're going to go 6 and then 5. And you know what? Let me zoom in while I do this because I know some people, it's really difficult to see some of this stuff. So let's try it right about here. So if I hit the before and then the after, you'll notice just a very slight red tint go into the skin tone. And that's really my goal. Just a little bit of adjustments to the skin. I know right now it's also doing it to the background, which is totally fine. We're going to focus on the background in a little bit. Then I'm going to get into my yellows and then -5, 4, and then 5 and 3. Okay. Now, if you want to know more about selective color, I made a video about 2 years ago about selective color on why I love it and why it's amazing. So definitely check that out if you want to know what all these numbers mean and how all of this stuff works. But the gist of it is basically I'm able to edit specifically the reds and I can adjust the red tones however I see fit here. And you can really just eyeball it really. And the same thing with the yellows. I can adjust those colors in the image that are yellow and adjust it based on these sliders. So that's just kind of like my starting point there. Now I'm going to make another selective color. Okay, but this time I want to focus on the background. So what I want to do so that I can just target the background is I want to go to select and then subject. And once it does that, I'm going to push and right click on the selection and I'm going to put feather and I'm going to put 15 pixels just to kind of soften up the edge. And then I'm going to push Shift F5. And what I did is I made a selection of the subject and I'm filling it in with black. Okay, so right here it says contents fill in with black, hit OK. What that basically means now, I'm going to press Control D to deselect, is now what you see in white is only going to be color graded, not the subject now. So now I can get crazy with these sliders and not have to worry about the skin tone being affected. And I can kind of go crazy here and I can go all random with these numbers if I want and know that I am not adjusting the skin tone. Okay, so I'm going to go -6 here. I'm going to go +5 or +6 here is fine. And we're going to go -5 and then we'll go +12 on my reds. Then I'm going to go into the yellows. We're going to go -1 or -4 is fine. We'll go +4 is good. And then we'll go +4 on the blacks. And then on the blues, because we do have a little bit of blues over here, I'm going to go 3, 1, 10, and 12. Okay. Now I do like to darken up my blues with the blacks. You can see that if I drag it to the right, it darkens it up. I'm actually going to darken it up a little bit more than what I originally did. So let's do 16. And so let's hit this eyeball before and after, and you'll see that I've added that. And then the skin tone, I've already added the nice little reds. Now the next one I want to do is I'm going to add a gradient map. So I'm going to come over here to my gradient map, or my adjustment layers, I should say. We're going to go to the gradient maps. And what I want to do is I want to set this to soft light. And what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna come into the properties and I'm gonna select within this little gradient map. And what I wanna do is I wanna set up what I want color graded in my shadows, my midtones, and my highlights. So I'm gonna click this first little stopwatch here and I'm gonna select the color and I'm gonna type in the code that I used, which was 5620. Let me see if it was O. No, it was 005. Okay. Then I had another one, which was 925014. And then my last one over here, which was 55EDFF. Okay. So basically with this color grade, oh, OMG, I messed that up. There we go, Control Z. Oof, man, Control Z is a lifesaver, man. It saves my students all the time when we're editing in class and they mess up, they always panic. But anyways, what we're gonna do right here is I can adjust where I want the color to go in. So this is going into my, my blacks and my shadows here. And this is, I could say, you know what, I want this more in my midtones, but basically I want this right around here. And of course, I typically like the teals in my highlights. So I am going to have it set right about like this. Looks fine for me. Maybe extend this out, maybe feather this off just a little bit there. And I'll go ahead and hit OK. Now, when I do make this adjustment, obviously it's a little bit too strong. So right, this is before and after. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to my opacity. And we're going to drop this down to maybe about somewhere about 25. So here we got the before and then the after, before and then the after. So let's just look at the color grade that I've done so far. Control G to group that. Boom, before, after. There's my color grade. Now we're still going to add a little bit more color grading as we go through this. But I'm going to go ahead and now jump into the camera raw. So I'm going to come back over here. And I'm going to go to my action and run the camera raw vato loco. This is going to merge everything together. And when everything's merged, it's going to make it into a smart object so that I can make some adjustments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click the camera raw filter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some minor color tweaks to the image. I do want it to be a little bit warmer. So I'm going to go about +1 here. I am going to add just a little bit of contrast, a little bit of clarity. Let's go 2. I don't like to get too cute with clarity. And then a little bit of texture. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to add just a little bit of sharpening. Let's add like maybe 35. And then we'll get into my luminance, which is, I'm going to go about 2 here. Oranges, this is going to really kind of concentrate on the face here. I don't want to go too much. I'm going to go about maybe +1. I'll go -7. And this is bringing back some of that detail in the sunset back there. So -7 there. And then 4 on the aquas. A little bit on the blues. You know what? I want it a little bit more moody. Let's go negatives there. And we'll keep everything at 0 there. The hue, the reds and oranges are nice to manipulate a little bit because this is where the skin tone is at. So I'm going to go in the negatives here. And then I will go into the oranges. We'll go -2. And I'm going to scroll down some more. And then my color grading, typically in my shadows, when I'm here, I like to go into like these kind of maroon colors. And we'll go about -3, or 3, I should say, saturation. And then in the blues for my highlights, I'm going to add just a little bit of blues into my highlights. It's teal. So I usually like my hue around 172. Then I got my grain. I always like to add a little bit more grain just in case the skin is a little bit too soft. It kind of fills in that softness a little bit. And then we'll vignette it just a little bit, darken up the edges so that the subject pops. Scroll down some more. And then when you get into the calibration, this is where it is all subjective here. Like I can go towards the positives here. I really like bringing up the saturation on this image. It actually looks good. So I'm going to go about 3 here. And then the greens, if I go hue, it's all about experimenting. We go +1. And the saturation here, let's go plus, +3. This one will go -3 and then +2. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and hit OK. So one of the things about the camera calibration that's awesome is that you can really bring out the colors really well, but you can't really mask it. So I love how the image is looking back here. The subject looks great. The colors around here look great. And I want to bring up this color a little bit more. So I'm going to make a duplicate. So I'm going to press Control-Shift-Alt-E. It's going to make an merged copy of everything. And what I want to do is I'm going to go to Filter, and I'm going to go to Camera Raw Filter. And I'm just going to mask in certain areas over here because I saw some really cool areas that had some potential with some of this color. So I'm going to speed this up real quick. And I'm going to bring up some of the saturation. Look at how much of those awesome blues that I got, or blues, oranges that I got over here. So this is looking beautiful. Bring up the saturation a little bit over here. I'm not worried about the subject right now. I'm just looking around here. And I'm going to go hue, maybe right around there. Okay. So what I want to do now is I'm going to hold Alt on this because right now this effect is showing up everywhere, right? I just want to brush it around this area. I'm going to hold Alt and layer mask that. So now it's a black mask, means it's not showing up anywhere. I'm going to hit the brush tool. We're going to stay at white. And I'm going to bring up the flow to about 67 is totally fine. And I'm going to slowly start gradually bringing in a little bit of that color into that beautiful sunset that we had. So look at this is what the colors look like before and then after. So adding that beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous color into that sunset. Now I'm not sure if I got it in the hand, so I'm going to get the black brush and then simply just brush it away right there. And of course, if I feel like I went too far, I can always lower the opacity. So it's always a good idea to lower the opacity. I'm going to go about 75%, right about there. Now we're almost done with this image. We do have a few more things to do, and this image is done. So one of the things I want to do is I want to adjust the exposure a little bit on the face. So in order to do that, I'm going to go into the adjustment layers and I'm going to go to levels, and I'm going to simply grab the white slider here and I'm going to drag it forward or to the left. Now we don't want to bring it too much because obviously it gets a little bit overkill, but just a little bit to make sure that she pops just a little bit more. And then to end this off, we're just going to go into one last color grade. And unfortunately, this one I had got from the Infinite Color panel. So one of the little tips that I'm going to give you guys is that experiment with different plugins. Now, I love using the Infinite Color panel because sometimes I'm not sure where I want to go with the color grade, right? And so sometimes I get like, man, I'm curious. Like, I just want to try something a little bit different and see different possibilities. And so sometimes I'll run this Infinite Color panel just to kind of experiment. And when I use this, sometimes I'll find a specific color grade that I like. And then what I do in order to save that so I can apply it to other images is I drag it to this Photoshop libraries. And I'm not sure if you guys use this, but you can save layers in here. So this is, if you're curious, this is how I label my behind the scenes stuff for Instagram. I simply save it. So I just click, drag that in, and then everything's already there. And I can go in and type and label everything, okay? So basically, this color lookup table has already been saved. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click and I'm gonna drag it in. And all I did was lower the opacity to about maybe 10%. So I'm going to lower it down a little bit more. Let's go 10. Let's see how this looks. But I love the color that it adds to the sky. And that's why I like this specific LUT that I got from the Infinite Color panel. And like I said, simply dump these in here, guys. Anything that you like, save it, and then just dump it back in, and you have an awesome color grade with this LUT. Now, if you want this LUT, let me know. Maybe I'll figure out if I can export it. If you got this far in the video, let me know, because then I can give it to you guys, put it in the description. So now that we're done with the image, let's go ahead and take a look at the before and after. So I'm going to scroll down. Let's go to the background layer. I'm going to hold Alt. This is the before. And then the after. And I'll zoom in just a little bit more closer so you guys can see the details. This is the before and then the after. But with that said, if you all really enjoyed this photograph and enjoyed the process, make sure to follow me on Instagram. I have a lot of behind the scenes content on there. And on this channel, guys, I have over probably now 15 different full edit tutorials. So make sure to subscribe. I have more videos coming out. The next one's probably going to be a Capture One level tutorial. I have some studio stuff up and coming. So make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and I will see you guys on the next one.